All right, so we just heard from the developers. I mean, I think it's really interesting that we heard from the public-private entities, the brokers this morning, developer, and then this afternoon we heard from the developers. And I think the message so far has been, even though there's challenges, the market is growing by leaps and bounds, and we're still delivering product, and we intend to do it, no matter what the challenges or delays. So now we have a panel of professionals that your job is to deliver the projects these developers are asking you to on time and on budget. So how are you doing that? First, introduce yourself.
Okay. Yeah, I'm John Langdon. I'm Operations Director with Lendlease, primarily out of the Life Science office in Princeton. And so we do a lot of work on large pharmaceutical campuses. So we're doing a lot of process projects, vaccine filling, flex lab, a lot of research labs. So that's mostly what we're doing right now.
Okay.
Hi everyone, Anthony Montalto. I have actually two roles. One role is I'm a co-chair for the regulatory committee for New York City Builds BioPlus. So if anyone's interested in trying to tackle the big issues we deal with in New York City, please see me afterwards. In my side gig, I'm a partner at JB&B, which is a full-service consulting engineering firm with just about 400 people with offices in New York City, Boston, and Philly. We do a lot of the work in New York City at major campuses like Hudson Research Center, like you heard from Matt before, West End Labs, 345 Park Avenue South, The Cure, and then also institutional buildings like NYU Langdon, Weill Cornell Medical, and Columbia University. Oh, by the way, dual role today. He's going to do architecture and structure.
Okay, go right ahead, Doug.
I'm Doug Gonzalez from LERA, Consulting Structural Engineers. I'm a partner there. Do a lot of work in life sciences, laboratories, healthcare facilities. I'm also help chair one of the life sciences committees, New York Builds Bio. Always looking for new members there. And then in terms of current projects that I'm working on or that LERA is working on, there's new construction, whether it be repositioning some earlier development into life sciences now that's being looked at. The New York City Blood Center, still preliminary design now, but that will go forward hopefully. A lot of renovation, whether it be at Columbia, NYU, at Tata Center, up with some things at Albert Einstein, and also the new public health lab for the city that's going up in Harlem. So a lot of both mix of new and existing construction.
Great. So, we heard about the kind of supply chain issues, the long lead time for orders, inflation, financing issues. Are there any novel ways that your firms have changed to kind of meet those challenges?
Well, there's always a plan, right? And a lot of times, you have specified products, you purchase what's there. And what we're finding now is sometimes even after order, you'll find out the times get kicked out. So you have to be very collaborative with the owner and the engineer and relook at what was specified and then shop for possible products that can reduce that time frame and help you keep the project on schedule. So we've done that. Fans are a big thing. I don't want to pick on individual manufacturers, but one rooftop lab fan, the product went out to 52 weeks, and we were able to substitute that, but it wasn't the specified product, slightly different structure on the roof, but we worked together, and that was one example.
I think the last panel touched on it mostly, all the equipment we're seeing long lead right now.
Yeah.
Just one thing to point out, the most important thing is to get everyone on the same page, all the stakeholders in the room together,
right,
making decisions early on for that basis of design, that design criteria. And that includes CMs, the design team, but also the operations team. And if there's a user involved as well, we need to make sure they understand what kind of equipment they're getting so we don't change that later on throughout the process. So that to me is probably the most elementary thing we could do right now.
So they talked about some of the firms actually pre-buying equipment Has your firm started doing that or considering it?
Yeah, if anything, we're probably doubling, tripling the amount of pre-purchase equipment we're going out to the street with right now.
Okay.
And that's getting done in end of schematic, early DD phase. So it's getting done pretty early on. So that early development is important to understand. And that sign off from all those stakeholders that I mentioned.
Yeah, so what is driving all of this delay, do you think?
Supply chain issues, electronics, we were mentioned before. It's a magnitude of things right now, honestly.
The electronics are a big part. They're products that you wouldn't normally consider long lead are now long lead, like lighting controls are a big problem right now. So, something that is at the end of the job, you can order it and you figure you have a year and a half. And now that time comes and you're realizing that the products aren't available. But
What about on some of your projects, Doug?
I mean, in the construction industry, we've always had issues. There's always been challenges. Pre-pandemic, we had raw materials go crazy at some point. Now, it's I think, fundamentally a lot of supply chain issues throughout the globe. And then they appear in different locations in different markets and become very unpredictable. Obviously, all the mechanicals and everything that's being made now is become very much involved in delays. Fortunately, raw materials, things that go for the building blocks of structures, of buildings, actually stabilize a little bit. There's inflationary pressures on steel. There's some of the raw materials of concrete, depending on the market. But that's actually a little bit more stable than some of these other long lead items.
So you kind of put all of this on top of the complexities of already building life science space, and it just makes it very difficult.
I just want to add to what Anthony said. Having a good team is so key. I mean, the challenges we're facing now are challenges we've dealt with for decades. And particularly over the last 10 years, we've had a lot of different challenges in the markets. Having a good team that includes the owner and all the users is so key because you want to make those early decisions.
Right.
Now more than ever. And it's got to be eyes wide open, and you got to have a team that's willing to really work together to obtain good information, to make good decisions. That is essential.
Mm-hmm. And it's really important for that team to be integrated from the very beginning, right? I know a lot of projects, they think, well, we're just going to save a little bit of money. We won't get the team working because that's just going to burn fees. But the truth is that you can solve problems so much easier when the team meets as a whole up front, and then you probably have to meet less after that, right?
Right. And it just, like they were saying, being more understanding. You can issue a purchase order and have the 40 weeks stamped right on it, and then realize it's not there. But now it's good that everyone's aware of supply chain issues, because you can go and say there is an issue that we weren't anticipating. We have a contract or a PO that says 40 weeks, and now it's 60. Mm-hmm. So, but everybody's been working together pretty well.
And keep in mind, early design work and estimating work doesn't have to cost a lot to the users. It's strategic time with good teams. So I think just using our resources the best way is the way to go.
Well, a lot of that early work is where the value engineering comes in too, right? Where you really are able to drive the cost of the job down a little bit more. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that, AJ.
Yeah, so value engineering needs to be done quickly and early. You cannot wait till later on. Later on phases in design are really meant for coordination, making sure that everything's fitting with inside this facility. So, we have to have those open-ended discussions with all the stakeholders to make sure they understand what they're getting in terms of materials as well as equipment. So we'll go through a pretty long vetted list of what kind of equipment's out there, who we think the basic design should be, and make sure we agree on that. Once we have that, then we vet and decide if those are the right pieces of equipment out there, what is the schedule driver for those pieces of equipment? Can we get them fast enough? Did the price go up drastically over the past couple of months? It's a moving target right now, still. So we're adapting daily, honestly, to all this dynamics going on in this environment.
And it just seems to me that it emphasizes the need to have people who have already built this before.
Right,
absolutely.
Because they know what's changing, they know what to factor in, right?
Absolutely.
Another technique we used recently was we split the mechanical packages, split the electrical packages to core and shell and fit out, and that allows the larger more long lead equipment to be purchased earlier while the design's still progressing. So when we know the size of the units, the risers, you know, all the larger components, we can buy that out and get, you know, price certainty on that as the design on all the fit out and any owner, you know, considerations inside still progress. So that's been another way to do it.
Yeah.
And Nancy, you mentioned value engineering, and often that's perceived as something that happens later when the project cost is, you know, is a concern and we got to course correct. We always recommend looking at the options early and really vetting what, you know, what could happen with those options. I know for what we do in terms of new construction, new structures, you know, New York City is often a steel market for, say, hospital work, maybe lab work, but there's definitely been concrete structures used for those occupancies, and a lot of times right now what I've been seeing is we're looking at both early on and letting the team decide and having those discussions and taking into account what could be the potential risks of those as they go forward.
Mm-hmm. And how much are the sustainability issues and the local laws changing, factoring into your decision making right now?
Yeah, so before all these issues with supply chain, we had to deal with two main issues that recently came, or has been around mostly. We have a research community that continues to evolve. The equipment needed within these spaces, the type of space, wet to dry, is constantly changing. So trying to future-proof these buildings is super important. We don't want to spend all that money up front and realize we don't need those additional fume and exhaust risers. So getting those kind of things, talking to brokers, talking to the owners, developers, to make sure that we're in agreement with what kind of future-proofing we put in this building is step one. That has always been there, will always be there. Where we end up going with this research in New York City, 5, 10 years from now, to the production side, GMP, more type of those facilities within the city is still TBD. We know these companies are going to continue to grow. They're going to need production type facilities, GMP type facilities. So how do we future-proof buildings like that without putting too much cost into it day one? That is the special sauce. So that is one. The second piece, which we all heard about before, Local Law 97. Dealing with ESG, investors now talking about what are the sustainability goals going into this building, this asset, what are the carbon emission planning goals. There's so many different levels now in terms of design decisions that it's very complicated, honestly. Now the key with ESG is just understanding where we're at day one. So many buildings right now, we're repositioning. The structure remains, we're putting in new equipment. So from an embodied carbon standpoint, it's actually a really good proposition. Yes, we still have to address the operational carbon that we mentioned before about Hudson Research Center and getting off of burning fossil fuels, but you have to look at it dynamically with different ways of operational and embodied carbon.
So you want to share a little bit of your special sauce that you, how you evaluate this?
Yeah, so it's a cost-effective but practical approach to design. So we can't just put the best piece of equipment always in. It doesn't work out pro forma-wise. We have to make sure we show options, and we look at early on, and I mean concept phase, schematic level phase, look at all the different options from an energy usage, energy cost, and carbon emission standpoint, then also look at the capital cost of that. And we look at all the pros and cons that are not layered into those elements, and we make decisions as a group. We decide this is what's best in terms of the local Law 97 initiatives, your investors that are out there that want to invest in this asset. So that's kind of the special sauce. Early on, information, get it done. As Doug mentioned before, the earlier on we can get those decisions made, the better off we are at the end of the project.
Yeah. So zoning and regulation, you know, the city planning department mentioned that this morning, and they have a whole new initiative on that that's designed to help expand the footprints of life sciences in the city. And I know you, as kind of the chair of the regulatory committee, have been working on that with them. So can we expect to see new places in the city opened up for life sciences?
I'm just an engineer, but if I had to put money on it, I would say yes. Just based on the feedback I've been seeing, the activity, we're seeing various developers out there. Institutional needs, specifically moving to different locations other than their campus because they're out of space. So all those kind of things lead me to believe that yes, it will continue to grow, and we will need EDC to help, you know, foster that through, whether it's through funding or through education.
Great. Any thoughts?
In terms of the regulatory, well, I mean, New York City is, has so much great housing stock. In fact, a lot of the conversions have been buildings that house cars, or they were manufacturing or storage decades ago. And to the extent that those are not in these M and industrial zones, those can be great candidates for conversions for labs. So yeah, I would hope that the regulatory will help facilitate that. And that's really one of the challenges we face, trying to determine if we want to use an existing building or tear it down or find an open piece of land. In New York City, open land is very challenging.
And Nancy, we had a meeting with EDC in the summer.
Yeah.
With the regulatory committee, and they were very open to hearing feedback from our community in terms of what's going on. So we have another session potentially set up for the end of the year. So it's good that we have that open dialogue to get through those issues right now.
Absolutely.
A lot of the production facilities, even if it's just for clinical trials, require a lot of height. And a lot of the existing buildings just are very difficult to obtain that.
You mean floor to ceiling height?
Floor to
Yeah,
ceiling, you need,
absolutely.
you have a piece of production equipment, it needs a full mezzanine above it to access and maybe space below.
Right.
A lot of and they're not even full manufacturing facilities, they're just, clinical trial facilities are 3 stories. And a lot of it wide open. So the city itself is challenging, especially with any existing building. It's going to be very challenging for that.
So it's important to know the use before you're evaluating.
So research is very well suited, and but jumping to that next step, you may have to look to an outer borough or Westchester.
Yeah, it's so funny because we're always, I've always been told by the research institutions in the city, oh, the meeting's all about real estate. But the truth is you need to know the science in order to determine what kind of real estate you're putting together. And it's really important to bring both sides together so that the science is understood and we can get the right environment to support it. So that's what this meeting's all about. And we're just about out of time, so I would love to see if there's any questions from the audience for our last panel. Otherwise, we all get to relax.
There's one over there.
Thank you, panelists. In terms of delivery models for construction, you have the classic design, bid, build, and now we're seeing alternative delivery models, CMAR, design, build. How do you see that fitting, or do you have a ratio in terms of the lab space that you're talking about, particularly with the early involvement with the pre-design and so forth in the conceptual phase?
Most of the lab spaces we're doing are just pure CM. The process work we're doing, which is the bulk of it, is EPCM, or Engineer, Procure, and Construction Management. Typically open book, not necessarily at risk, but we do hold and manage the designers, the process designers, as well as purchase the major process equipment and all the trades. And that's just the model we're doing right now. And it gives the an owner a single point that we can manage all that. They're very complicated, those types of jobs. The labs have all been CM at this point.
We had a few jobs go design assist on the lab side, and I thought it was pretty effective having the subs on pretty early to talk about various VE items when we were still designing, looking at different material types for the different things in the building. So that was pretty effective. I think we're going to head more towards kind of the integration of the team moving forward. How we get there, when we get there, I don't know, but I definitely see that melding of us all coming together, and hopefully one day all using the same BIM model. Right now we have one design model and then one construction model. I'd like to see that all come together.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah, I think, design assist, which also works well with early procurement, early packages, and getting contractors in, certain select contractors in to inform the design that's going, the bid drawing going out early is definitely something that's going to keep on accelerating. Taking elements from design build, maybe more IPD light processes, I think is healthy and good. Design build per se, it gives up some control that the owner has. So those are really for certain types of projects.
I also feel just the contractual relationships are something that may be holding the industry back from being truly a, if you can model, and I can take his model, send it to a fab shop, and then have it arrive on site and just assemble it, and we were all not worried about responsibility or contractual obligations, and we all work together. That would really be a breakthrough where we could really reduce cost and time delivering a project.
Bless you.
Excuse me, sorry.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. I can see where that would be an impediment to people just working together and getting things done.
it often is.
Yes.
Thank you, panelists. How important in this evolving world of construction technology, engineering technology, is BIM and BDC and other emerging technologies? How critical is that in play into what you guys do?
I was going to say, I think it's super important that every design team you're pulling in, every construction team you're pulling in, is integrated with BIM and BDC. We're going to see this rapidly change, go to digital, virtual twins. More BI work is going to start to happen. So the integration of the end user, understanding how their building should be operating, has to overlay with that level of BIM that we're going into. So I think it's super critical we get there.
Right. All our projects are fully modeled. And the subcontractors that work with us completely appreciate that, because now they can manufacture most of their product off-site, including electric rooms. We're actually building telephone equipment rooms off-site, like IDFs off-site, and electric gear, panels, pre-bent. And if they trust and rely on the model, so much more work can be done off-site and brought to the site in a better quality, safer environment.
Yeah, I mean, it's what everyone's doing now. I will say, though, that you need to have good teams, good expertise with BIM, because bad BIM can really mess things up. It's not just modeling for the sake of modeling. It's about putting the right data in there and having people work together effectively.
Okay, well, we've had a full day. We appreciate you all coming and staying and listening and learning, I hope. And now we get to relax. We've got a reception until 4 o'clock, so let's go be together for a little while.
All right.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you.
Thank you.